Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? We're back again with another episode. This is the Class in Session podcast. I am your host, Mr. Logan Taylor, with my amazing co host, my partner in crime, Mr. Dontay Hampton. And listen, guys, before we got a special guest for you all right? We have a very, very, very special guest. But before we get started, I need y'all to do three things for us. I need you to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. I need you to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. Leave us a review about the podcast. If you are enjoying the content that we are giving you all, hey, leave us a review. Share it with your network. All right. All right, Dontay, can you bring our special guest on?
All right, y'all. So we got somebody from Brooklyn, New York, by way of Connecticut and Georgia, but he's originally from Brooklyn. Mr. Dondi Burroughs.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he's been he's been in education for over 30 years. He's worked with the sheriff department, with the gang unit. He's an author. He's written two books, one on suicide and the next on gang intervention. He's a TV host and producer for public access TV show Teens that's been ran for over 20 years. He's an advocate for the youth. He continued to fight on guns, gangs, and violence, suicide, HIV, STDs, peer pressure, and etc. Like I said, he's just really an advocate for the youth. Mr. Dondi, Mr. Burroughs, man, can you just give a little bit the listeners a little bit more about yourself and how you even got into education?
Well, you know what? I just want to say this. We all don't know what our niche is. We don't know what our calling is. And I'm gonna tell you a little story real quick. Um, when I was in New York, I was going through a lot of things. Me and my uncle, we had a restaurant in Queens called Ribs and Bibs, and I was going through a lot. And I really didn't know where I wanted to be. I had just got a divorce. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was kind of depressed. So I'll tell you, this was in '89. '89, that goes to show you how old I am. '89, I was sitting in the closet. I was trying to decide what I was going to do that night. It was my birthday, and I really didn't like to go out on my birthdays because I always felt uneasy about going out on my birthdays. So I'm sitting in the closet, and I ended up falling asleep, but I was awakened by an angel. Now, check this out, man. I tell this story all the time. Now, at the time, I wasn't working with kids. I wasn't doing nothing as far as education or anything. And I was awakened by an angel. And the angel said to take my hand. So I figured, well, he's an angel, so I'll take his hand. So I took his hand. We flew across the city, and we stopped. And the angel said, look down. So I looked down, and I seen like a hall or church or something, and there must have been close to 1,000 youth in there. I couldn't understand why they were there, so I asked for clarification. I said, please, I don't understand. He said, look down. I looked in the front, there was a coffin, I was in it. It didn't bother me that I had died because I tell you guys, I was contemplating suicide, so that didn't bother me. What bothered me was all those youth that were there. I couldn't understand it. So when I asked for clarification, the angel was gone. When I woke up, it was 5:30 in the morning. I must have slept in the closet. I don't know what happened. But that following day, I talked to my father. He's a minister. He said, listen, son, I just want to tell you one thing. God is trying to show you something. He's trying to show you whatever you're going through, you hang on, because it looks like you're going to be doing something very, very powerful in the years to come. And it looks like you're going to be working with kids. I said, well, Dad, no, I'm not doing nothing with kids. He said, just believe. And that was it. So that was in '89. So throughout the years, I did my travels, and I went to school, went to Baltimore and everything. I came back to New York, and then I went back to Connecticut. In '98, I was going through some more problems. We all go through problems. And I just said at this time, and I tell this all the time, that I wanted to give up, even though I do believe in the higher power. But this is not like the biblical days where you hear a voice coming down from heaven and they kind of direct you and tell you what to do. We have to kind of move on faith. But sometimes, as being imperfect humans, it's hard for us to move on faith when we're going through so many problems. So what I did was I kind of let that little man on my shoulder, the devil, infiltrate and kind of tell me what to do. And the thing he told me to do was, hey, man, go get something to drink, some liquor. I don't drink, I don't smoke. Go get some liquor, man, take a swig, and then end your life. So I went, I got a half a pint of vodka, I drunk, and I started feeling a little tipsy. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of life. I don't want to live no more. And it just so happened that I was holding a few firearms for a friend of mine who was going through some problems and didn't want the firearms in the house. So I had the shotgun and the handgun. So at this time, I'm drinking, I'm feeling sad, I'm crying. And I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. So I took a swig, I got the shotgun, I put the muzzle in my mouth, but I couldn't reach the trigger because the shotgun was so long. So I took the muzzle out, put my hand on the trigger, I couldn't reach the muzzle. So what I did was I took a string and I tied it to the trigger, and I put the edge of my sneaker in there. I put the muzzle in my mouth, closed my eyes, and I stepped on it, and the string broke. All right. So I did it again. The string broke. So something on my shoulder said, hey, man, that's not the end. Take another swig, get that gun over there, and do what you do. Do it and end it. I grabbed the gun, cocked it back, put it in my mouth, closed my eyes, put my head back, and when I squeezed the trigger, it went click, and I went, huh. I took it out my mouth. I looked, I could see where the bullet jammed inside the chamber a little bit. So I'm playing with it, and I squeezed the trigger, and it went pow, right in the ceiling. To make a long story short, that was telling me that it wasn't my time to go. So what I did was that day, I called my dad. I didn't tell him exactly what I did with the guns. I just told him that I wanted to commit suicide. You know what he said to me? He says, I want to ask you one question, son. He says, what are you doing now? I said, I'm working. He says, okay, what are you doing now? What kind of work? I said, well, I work in several high schools. I got the TV show. I got the drill team. I got the mentorship program. He said, stop right there. He said, I'm going to take you back a few years. And I said, what are you talking about? He says, remember that dream you told me back about in 89 when you was in the closet? I said, yeah. He says, let me explain something to you. He says, you remember that, Dad? He says, let me explain something to you. He said, yes. He says, back then, God was trying to show you something. He was trying to tell you, whatever you're going through, you hang on, because it looks like you're going to be doing something very powerful in the years to come. And it looks like you're going to be working with kids, and you're going to be doing a lot of education with kids. I never even thought about that. And then he said, let me tell you something else. All of those kids that you seen many years ago in 89 that were at your funeral are the kids of today. Meaning, if you were to kill yourself or commit suicide a week later, all those kids will be at your funeral a week later. All those kids that you seen years ago. And he said, let me tell you something else. He says, all those kids that trust you and followed you on your TV show and believe in you, they're going to say to themselves, well, I'm going through problems. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to do like Mr. Dondi, and I'm going to commit suicide and kill myself. So to make a long story short, what he was telling me is that God has a plan for all of us. We don't know what our niche is, but my plan was to teach and to work with kids. That's what prompted me to write my first book, A Vision. So what I'm saying is that that's the reason why I got into education, so that I can help our youth that are going through the same problems that we go through every day, no matter what. So that's what prompted me to get into education.
Okay. All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's a powerful story, Mr. Dondi.
Thank you.
Powerful, powerful, powerful story. I love it. Let's touch on mental health for a quick second, because I heard you talk about, suicide. I heard you talking about, those different points of views that you had with, taking the swig of the liquor and the gun and things of that nature. What was it that compelled you to get to that point, right? Like, what was it that where you were like, hey, I don't see the value that I can bring to this world?
And you know what? That's a great question, because a lot of times we never see the value in ourselves, but other people see it. I mean, like me, as being a motivational speaker, I can motivate you all day long. But who motivates the motivator? When we are down, we need something, we need somebody. And then it goes back to so many entities, whether you're in a relationship with someone who thinks that you're better than them, or they can't live up to your expectations. So sometimes they try to do things to make you feel like you're like this, below them. And sometimes it does work, because I say to myself, wait a minute, here I am, motivational speaker, educator, law enforcement, TV show host, radio show host, but yet I feel like I'm not worth nothing, because we allow people to get inside of our mind to make us feel like that. And that's one thing that we should never do. And we should always talk about it to someone, whoever your mentor is or whoever. Always talk about it. Don't have it, boil inside so bad that you're going to explode and do an attempt, something that I attempted that failed, because God would not let it, let me fail on that. And you're right. This is what happens. We start to think about things. We start to think low about ourselves, low self-esteem, and we think we're not worth nothing. We all have a gift. We all have something to put on the table. I don't care whether you work at McDonald's or you work on the back of a garbage truck. Be the best that you can be, and you do the best that you can do. And don't ever let anybody tell you that you're not worth anything, because that's only the devil trying to get into you and into your mind.
That's real good. That's deep right there. I like that. As far as on the mental aspect of things. Let me ask you this. What is a common myth about working with kids you think that people forget, or what is a perception you'll say about working with kids that people think, because people think it's easy, like, okay, all right, it's you working with kids, it's easy. Hey, I'm being a good mentor. What is a common myth you think that people do that you say a lot of people don't know?
Well, I'm gonna tell you a common myth, and I'm gonna go through two aspects: from the teacher's point of view and from law enforcement. The teacher's point of view is that the common myth is that a lot of people say we're only here for the paycheck. It's the passion that we have that drives us to teach all of the kids that have all these problems. A lot of them say that we don't you don't care about us. I always tell my students that to the world you may not mean anything, but to that one person you may mean the world. And a lot of times these kids, that's all they need to hear. We are not teaching the things that some of the kids say. We're not teaching the things that pertain to real life situations. One student told me that, why do I need to learn about the Civil War? That has nothing to do with me. So this goes back. Let me tell you, we could talk about a lot of things, but we could talk about history, or we could talk about his story. And a lot of times when you go to history, when I was teaching history, when the kid told me that, I said, listen, the Civil War has a lot to offer and it has a lot to teach you. It's just that on a timeline, we're only taught certain things that they want us to know. But I broke it down to him. I told him even about the Civil War. There's a lot of things that a lot of us don't know about. Like, for instance, Uncle Sam, where that came about, how we had to pay taxes. Also, about the Jim Crow laws. One of the first laws was that when all of the African Americans got drafted into the Civil War, that was the money makers. So now the whites have to stay home with the kids. One of the Jim Crow laws was, it's against the law for you to stay home. You have to go to the master's house or whoever's house and clean up. You have to do this, and if not, you'll go to jail or whatever. And now what is a person to do? So now when I speak to my students about this, they say, wow, I never knew that. So they said, this is the type of stuff that we want to learn about because we're not being taught this in the schools. Now, the same thing, I'm going to switch it around a little bit with the police officers. Some of the myths or the common myths about that is that we're donut lovers. Some are racist. Some are KKK. We are the biggest gang in the world. That's what a lot of the guys tell me that because I was on the gang unit. You guys are the biggest gang in the world. We don't have feelings, but we're human. We have feelings too. But people have to understand that we have to stay neutral on certain things and situations, not being biased. That's where a lot of people get it twisted because when we do our job, we can't be biased. We can't just automatically assume. See, back in the days, somebody can call the police and say, hey, this man beat me. Click, click, he goes to jail. But now the police say, whoa, wait a minute. You said he beat you? Well, what did he do? Well, he hit me in the face. He slapped me. He punched me. Well, let me see if there's any marks. Let me see any scratches. Let me see. So now they're really starting to investigate more because a lot of innocent people are going to jail for a lot of accusations. So some of the myths that a lot of these kids have about police or even education, it has a lot to do with what's going on in today's society and the way that they're changing things around in society for the school education system. I'm sorry, that's just my alarm for the clock. So if you hear some noise in the background, it's just a little soft. It'll go up in a second.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I love that. That's good. So being able to tie the two with education and being a police officer, I think that that's important. Um, for somebody that is interested, right, to wanting to get into the field that you work in with, being a teacher and motivating kids, as well as with you going and being a cop, what is one piece of advice that you would give someone in regards to wanting to start out in that career?
Man, that is an excellent question. You know why? Because the first thing I say, and I don't want people to take this wrong, as a police officer or a teacher, we cannot save the world. We can't say some people just don't want to be saved. They just don't want they don't want to be saved. Not saying that we have to give up on everybody, but never that. But what we have to do is we cannot forget the ones that want to learn and the ones that want to abide by the law and be model citizens. When I took an early retirement from the sheriff's department, I've been out of teaching for 20 years. So when I was in Atlanta, being on the gang unit, I also worked for Evander Holyfield, the boxer. I did, home security for him. And I did a few little presentations here and there. But in 20 years, the things change, rules change, everything changes. So once again, when I started teaching, I thought that I can go in and save the world. But when I started looking at the way things are and the way the system is now, I'm like, holy cow. And the way that this generation is, there's a lot of kids that really don't want it. And we cannot save the world, but I don't give up on them, but I just try to help the ones that want to be helped. So my advice is that if you want to get into a field like that, you have to, first of all, have the patience. You have to have the willingness to deal with what society is bringing to the table now, because we're dealing with a whole new breed of generation. I believe I'm a 70s and 80s baby. No disrespect to the 90s and the 2000s, but the 90s was kind of okay, but the 2000 era is off the chain. And they think differently, they act differently, they treat you differently. So we have to readjust to the way that they're doing it, but we have to do it in another way. And you have to really be careful, because if you don't, you'll find yourself in a lot of trouble, because nowadays with new technology and everything going on, people are getting fired for even saying certain things or putting your hands on kids or whatever. So you have to really be careful. But the main thing is you just have to have a passion for what you want to do. It can't be, I'm just doing it for the paycheck. Either you're there for the cause, or if you're there because, or you're down for the cause. So let me repeat that again. Either you're there for the, you're there because, just because, or you're down for the cause.
Okay. I like that. I like that. That was good. That was good. Dontay, come on, jump in here.
Yeah, I like that way he said the patience, having patience is very vital. And then he said passion. I think I heard that correctly. So those two are very vital as far as getting into the education field, or for you on your other side of being in law enforcement. My question to you would be, how has mental health impacted the schools compared to, I know people don't talk about as much, whether it be long testing and lots of hours at school. How has that affected the school now, and what is the mental state of students now? Because back in the day, your grandparents tell you, "Hey, it's okay. You just got a headache. Lay down." Or "Hey, it'll be all right. Just move on." How is the mental state and the mental health edition and really impacted society nowadays?
Well, I just want to say this. I don't want to get too much, because we could open up a lot of worms. I mean, a can of worms and everything. All I'm saying is that things are a lot different from when I went to school. Back then, we had the paddle. And I'm talking about the big thing, looked like a pizza thing. You pick the pizza up, a big heavy thing. And if you acted up, you got the paddle. And then when you got home, you got another whipping. Even if you said a curse word, or even if you were out of place, you got expelled. It's not like that nowadays. A lot of the youth have no respect. A lot of them, they use a lot of profanity. A lot of them are, as I can say, they're what's the word I'm looking for? They have it easy, not compared to when we went to school. The library was our Google. Nowadays, they got smart board, laptops. They have the pamphlets, the what do you call them? That's all they use. That's all they know. And
The tablets.
the tablets, that's what it was. I got brain fart. That's all they know. And that's all they want, and that's all they're used to. They want everything handed to them. So when they don't get that, then they start acting out. And when they act out, it's because of one or two reasons. Because either they don't know, or they just don't want to know. And what happens is, once they start to act out, now they're a problem child. A lot of the misconceptions that a lot of teachers have and a lot of the schools have is that, a lot of these children are coming from areas, neighborhood, low income areas, where they are considered, maybe are they considered a product of their environment. A lot of them come from gang infested, guns, violence, murders, suicides, drugs, abuse. So all of this in one, that's what's going through their mind every day. So when they come to school, they're like this. They got so many things going on, and it's hard for them to function. And when it's hard for them to function, what happens is they're labeled, and then they're put in certain programs like the EIPs and all these other programs where they're saying that they have a special ed problem. And it's not special ed, it's just that they're having problems trying to communicate because either they're having problems at home or they just don't know. And now they're labeled as certain in certain brackets and certain labels. And now that's what's happening every day in the schools. You talk about all of the mental health issues, and they're proud to say, well, I got this. I'm diagnosed with that. I have this. When I went to school, only thing we took was Fred Flintstone vitamins. So, there's a lot of things that society is putting upon them that's really taking effect on all of our children and their future.
Okay. All right. I see where you're going. I see where you're going. Okay. All right. Let me ask you, if there was one thing you could change about the education system, there was one thing, you was meet with the Secretary of Education Monday morning, and he says, hey, Mr. Burroughs, whatever you come up with, we will implement this immediately. What is one thing that you would change about the education system? What would it be?
Well, that's also a great question. Looking back, like I said before, 20, 30 years, things have changed. The technology has changed. And even now, they don't even teach cursive in the schools anymore. That's a setup for failure. All this new technology has pushed, like I said, the libraries out of existence. Today's youth are they're very easy to push their buttons, and because if they don't get their way, like I said, with the tablets, the laptops, the smart boards, then they don't want to learn. They don't want to do nothing. So when you get a teacher like me, an old school teacher, somebody who has old school traditions, or having to teaching them the way that we used to, and the kids are trying to listen, they have no desire to listen because that's not what they want. They want the updated version of all this new technology. And once they don't have that, they lose the engagement of schools. They don't want to learn. There's an increase in dropouts. So if I could change one thing about it, it would be for teachers and people that want to get into that field, not to only accept and adapt to these new ways, but to incorporate it with what our youth know and can relate to. Example, once again, when I taught history, I kind of looked at all the things that our youth, were into, and a lot of our youth, they love basketball, they love sports. So I said, well, how can I incorporate history, United States history, into our youth? Well, I taught them who invented basketball. James Naismith, 1891, who was from Massachusetts. And he invented the soccer ball and the basketball. He went to Springfield College. So now these kids get a little education on where it came from, and now it strikes their interest. Like Lisa Leslie, she was the first African American, one of the first women to dunk in the WNBA. A lot of kids say, wow, I never knew that. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the history that people don't talk about, and I'm kind of putting it in the timeline so that our kids can have a little bit more interest. So using more interactive methods that the student can relate to, I believe that this is the most important thing, more life skills classes will prepare them for life's journey. Also, more teacher training. I say this because like cultural sensitivity, it's great to have degrees. I talk to people all the time, oh yeah, I got my degrees, I got this, I got that. Yes, but do you have what it takes in your heart and in your mind to teach these kids, to redirect them, to teach them the right way? And the reason why I say that is because I also I'm not sure if you're familiar with a para-educator. A para-educator is the person that is the teacher's assistant. Years ago, there was no para-educator. The teacher did everything. So my job in class was to calm them down, redirect them, remind them of the expectations, break up fights, So all of this I have to do as the para-educator. Now, What is it for the teacher to do? Just to sit back and watch me do all the work because they got the degrees and they know better. So what I'm saying is that well-trained, skilled teachers that understand where these students come from will help them to teach them a little bit more. And like I said before, they're living in environments that are filled with so many things, so many violence. Even if you look at in LA, kids got to run to school and run home so that they don't get killed and get beat up. That's a lot of stress. Some of these kids don't even have nothing to eat. So what they do is when they get to school, they're eating 1 and 2 lunches. Well, may I have another one? Hey, you're only allowed to get 1 lunch. No, no, no. Give him another lunch. Well, why? We can't give it to him because they don't know the situation at home. They're not eating. So this will help them to carry their day on. So, like I said, just having well-trained teachers, not just having an education, but being a little bit more sensitive to what our students are going through. You know, just because you live in a certain area doesn't mean that you're going to be a gun-toting, alcohol-drinking, weed-smoking thug. Or just because you look a certain way, you can't just stereotype and base people on that. I know plenty of people that dress a certain way but are very intelligent. And that's what we have to stop. Stop judging people on the way that they look or the way that they dress. You know, you have to base them on their academic ability. And the only way we can base them, grade them on their academic ability is if we help them to get to that point.
That's good. That's good. I really liked the life skills. I don't think people really touch on that, and people don't understand how important teaching life skills to the youth in comparison to getting them to do their core subjects or getting them to
Yeah,
achieve the task at hand.
yeah. You know,
Um,
oh,
Go
I just
ahead.
want to
Go
say,
ahead.
I just want to say one thing. Like when you touch, I mean, I think that out of all of this, the life skills is so important because this is what we need to get them in order to survive out there in the street. I, you know, 3 months ago, one of my other black colleagues, he's a math teacher. He says, you know, Donnie, let me show you something about how these kids are pushed through the system. He says, watch this. He says, hey, so and so, look up there. What time is it? Oh, I don't know. And I'm looking like, what do you mean you don't know? They don't know how to tell time. So what happens is when you get a lot of kids that either they don't want to learn because they're going through so much, and then they're scrutinized, and the teacher tells them, well, you know what? You don't want to learn. You need to get out of this classroom. And why do you come to school anyways if you don't want to be here? Then now, how do you think that child feels? How do you think that's going to act? They're going to act. That creates a toxic, unhealthy environment. And what happens is that's when the student acts out. And the only thing they hear from them, you know, like I said, from the teachers, is all this negativity instead of building them up, instead of understanding where they came from. So, like I said, understanding the student, learning about the different cultures and the life skills is so important so that we can help our children, our youth, when they are set free, you know, out in society, because if not, they're going to be labeled with their IEPs, the disabilities, and it's what it is just a failure for them in life to come up. You know, we're just failing them. We're failing them. I see kids that graduate that don't know how to read, that don't know how to write, and they're set free in the world. So now what we've done is we put more drug dealers on the street corner. We put more rapists. We put more pedophiles. We put more gangbangers on the street because that's all they know. That's what they go back to because they can't get a job because they don't know how to fill an application out. They don't know how to write their name in cursive. They don't know what time it is. So now what do we do with that whole new breed of youth? But just hire more police officers. That's going to get aggravated and then the same thing's going to go on because all police officers are not bad. We just have a very few that don't go by the oath, you know. So, and it's going to keep on carrying on and carrying on and carrying on. So we need programs that's gonna help our kids to learn and to be ready for life's journey.
Yeah, that's real good. Like understanding these students in the sense of where they come from and what triggers them. So, like I said, I really liked those life skills. We probably got about one more question before we get up out of here. Um, can you how? Let me ask you this. So, as far as teachers and understanding, there's a lot of turnover and educational burnout with teachers and people quitting. Do you think there is a numerical or a number that teachers could pay to help weed out a lot of this teachers quitting and teachers not people just not want to be in education anymore? Which you also
Mm.
used to be in law enforcement as well. Do you think there's a could teaching be more appealing to where there wouldn't be so many people quitting? Is what I'm asking.
You guys, man. I'm telling you, man. You guys are giving me some good questions, man, and I love it. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues this morning, about that. A lot of people are quitting because I'm not going to say that a lot of them are underpaid, because some of them are getting good money. They just don't give us the realm to do our job correctly. They say, like when I taught history, they said that, well, Mr. Burroughs, you have to go according to the state curriculum. You have to go according to what the state wants you to do. We have to teach U.S. history, Civil War, U.S. Constitution. You have to teach. I said, yeah, but what about all the other stuff? Well, there's nothing we can do about that. So when you get a kid that all he knows how to do is go out there and sell drugs, and you come and tell him that, the U.S. Constitution, they're gonna like, what the heck? That's, I don't want to hear about that. And then what happens is, all the teachers that come in straight from college, that have the degrees and they're gung ho, they lose interest because they don't know how to relate. They don't know how to deal with them. And I always tell people that comprehension is built on fluency, and fluency is built on the skills that our youth need to know and have. And a lot of this goes back to what is going on with the teachers, and I'm not going to say once again about the pay. We could get a little bit more, but what's the sense of getting more pay if you don't know how to relate to the kids? I think that there needs to be a program, like a good friend of mine, Dr. Umar Johnson, is trying to start, his school, and everything that he's trying to put into his school, the Pan American, Pan African American, it's all based on cultures. It's all based on teaching them about your culture, knowing who you are. A lot of people don't even know who they are. So once again, to your question, I don't even think it's about the pay, brother. It's not. You can pay somebody a lot of money, but all money is not good money. It has to be things that teachers are going to be able to teach, and the kids are going to understand, and that's going to help them. If I tell you, listen, my brother, every day I'm going to teach you a new word, and at the end of the week, I'm going to test you on that. So what I do is, people think I'm crazy. When I'm in the hallway and the kids are transitioning, I'll say, assume, and I'll give them the meaning out loud. Assume, and I'll say it. And then when they come to my class, I said, okay, we're going to learn a new word. Assume. Hey, I know what that is because I heard you say it. See, that sparks their interest. And then that motivates teachers to want to teach. But when you just have no disrespect, once again, to the people that, quote unquote, I got the education. I went to school and I got my PhD and I got my MBA and I know what I'm doing. No. If you don't know how to reach these kids, that's out the door. That's out the door. So when you guys talk to somebody else, ask somebody about para educators. They'll tell you they do the teacher's job. So once again, I know we only have 1 minute. I'm sorry, but it's not about the pay. It's about learning how to deal with our students and deal with the, how to teach them in the way that they need to be taught.
Really, that's really good. We haven't heard that one. So it's not about the pay essentially. It's more so about the freedom to connect and
Yes,
teach to the
yes,
students. Correct?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Like I said, that's our first time hearing that one because most of the
Mhm,
time, most people
mhm.
always say there's a number, or most people are big on like essentials or packages, housing, things of that nature. But I've never heard people say it's not about the pay; it's more so the freedom to teach,
They
which
offer me,
I think would be interesting though. I think
yeah,
that'd be
they offer
interesting.
me, they offer me a lot more money to teach. All money is not good money. You understand? If you can't give me the realm and you can't give me the way to teach that I'm supposed to, it's hard for me to do the state curriculum when these kids don't want to know about the state curriculum. That's why I add a lot of things and everything. Even when I did the science, I added everything about science. Like, for instance, I know we got to go, but in science class, they want to teach you all this stuff about the space and about the, everything. Yeah, that's fine. But let's talk about your body, how magnificent your body is. Did you know how small, do you know how small your your blood cells are? You would have to take a 2-inch piece of thread, fold that in half, and then fold that in half 950 more times. That tells you how small your cells are. Or I'll talk to them. Have you ever walked outside and looked at the trees? How many species of trees do we have? We have over 65,000 species of trees. So they said, what? I never knew that. So you have to make things interesting for the kids, not just the basic stuff that they're going to be like this and fall asleep. Make it
Absolutely.
interesting. So, like I said, I appreciate you guys. There's so many things that I talk about: suicide, gangs, guns, and violence, obesity, bullying, cyberbullying, Facebook bullying, social media bullying. I do all of that. So hopefully, I hope I didn't bore you guys too much, but I can get another invite maybe to talk about something else sometime. And I love you guys for that, man. And I really appreciate you even taking the time for even allow me on your show.
No problem, man. Thank you so much, Mr. Dondi. We really appreciate you for coming out with us. For all our listeners out there, Mr. Burroughs, can you just let them know how they can reach you on social media or anything like that?
Okay, let me get. Let me get. Uh-oh.
Give him your website.
Okay, I just created the website, and oh man, give me 1 second, okay?
Yep, absolutely.
All right, I'm sorry. And I gotta memorize it by heart, so don't get mad at me, anybody.
No, you
Um,
good. You good. It's all good.
okay, here it is. If they go to, if you go to, it's all lower cap, teens only TV show, the number one dot MailChimp. That's PSITES.com. So that's mail. Oh God, that's Teens Only TV Show number one dot MailChimp sites.com. So that's MailChimp sites.com. You go to that site, then you can, on the left hand side, click the three bars, and that'll take you to ordering the books, my speaking engagements, and everything else.
Awesome, 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 wonderful. Can you leave our listeners with a piece of motivation before we get out of here?
Okay, my good friend Les Brown, I always use this. Les Brown, the motivational speaker, says we're all going to go through problems. We're all going to have problems. It is normal due to imperfection. This is what we're going to go through. He says, but when life gets you down, try to land on your back, because if you can see up, you can get up. And that's why I want to leave everybody. I love you. Peace and blessings. This is not the end. This is just a comma, because I'm going to return.
Absolutely. I love it, Mr. Dondi. I love it. Listen,
Okay.
guys, listen. This is let me give you your flowers before we get out of here. Mr. Dondi, I want to say thank you for coming onto
Mhm.
our podcast. I also want to give you your flowers. Um, and say thank you for answering the calling to help the next generation, to help our
Yes.
babies, to pour into them, to love unto them, and things of that nature. So thank you for answering that calling because I know it's not easy,
Mhm.
but we know that it's worth it. So I want to say thank you for that. And also, listen, guys, before we get out of here, listen, this is the Class in Session podcast. I need you to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. I need you to like, subscribe, and comment. All right. Make sure you do those three things. Because listen, your feedback and the love that we're getting out here is amazing, and none of this is possible without you. So make sure you all check out the Class in Session podcast. And listen, if you love what we're doing, you think or believe that, hey, I love what Logan and Dontay is doing over there with Y.B.Normal in the podcast. I love the value that they're adding. I love the impact that they're adding. Share it with your network. All right. Share it with your network. All right. Because you could be helping somebody else. And that's what it's all about. All right. At the end of the day, if we can just reach one, we're okay with that. So listen, guys, make sure you get with us. Mr. Dondi, he left you with some motivation. He said, listen, if you fall down on your back, if you look up, you can get up. All right.
Mhm.
And in
Yep.
closing, like always, Y.B.Normal?
Extraordinary.
No, run that back, bro. They ain't get it. Y.B.Normal?
When you can be extraordinary.
Hey, we'll see you guys soon. This is the Class in Session podcast. I am your host, Logan Taylor, with my partner in crime, my brother, Mr. Dontay Hampton. And listen, we brought on Mr. Dondi Burroughs for you all. Make sure you get in contact with him and check him out. All right. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Love you.
Love, 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 love. Yes,
All
sir.
right.
Love, love, love.